CQ. This is David G3NB with the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club Monday Night Net for the second time in a while. I think we did it last Monday. Hoping that some people are out there waiting to join me. To try and make the net a little bit more conversational, tonight's subject is my other hobby is, and it's an opportunity for you to express what your other hobby is or other interest is. It doesn't have to be radio, of course. It can be something completely different, and that will make it hopefully interesting. And we may see some patterns as well. I think a lot of us realise that we have similar hobbies, and maybe that's what makes us radio amateurs. Anyway, I'm now going to go around the list, but what I'd ask you to do is something a little bit different to normal. Instead of just coming in with your call sign, I write it down and then I come to each of you. If you're just going to be listening and you don't want to talk about any particular hobby or interest, can you say no at the end of your call sign? But if you've got something you're going to talk about with your other hobby or interest, can you say yes? So I hope that's clear. So say yes if you're going to talk about something with your hobby, and no if you're not. And then at the end, of course, there'll be plenty of opportunity for people to join in. That's going to try and make it a bit more of a conversational net. So, round to the first person who's going to come in and join us. This is David G3NB standing by for calls.
M0NKR, yes.
Thanks, Andy. Next.
Jade Oscar, no.
Sorry, you'll need to go again on that. I had the pips over the top. And can you also, by the way, say your name at the end? Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get everybody's name from my memory. Thanks again. Can you go again, please, that call?
George 8, Oscar, Alan, and no.
Okay, thank you. And who's next?
Mike 7, Julia Papa Charlie, Jan, yes.
Thank you. And the next?
2E0 Sierra Zulu Delta, Steve, yes.
Great, thank you very much. I've also got a scribe, my wife, sitting next to me helping me write these names down, and that was a perfect speed. So go ahead, the next person, please. Call sign followed by yes or no for whether you're going to talk about another hobby.
Yes.
Sorry, that doubled, so can one of you go again? Okay, I'm going to have to try that again. I think that's doubling, although it was identical each time. So can I ask those just to not come back now, and someone else who wasn't coming back at that moment to go ahead, and then we'll try again in a minute. It was maybe a massive coincidence, but anyway, so let the next person, so those who did two or more who just tried to come in, let someone else come in at the moment, please. This is G3NB, standing by.
Mike 0 Bravo Lima Hotel, yes, and it's Scott.
Thank you, Scott. And the next?
Mike 0 Tango Victor Golf, Mike, yes.
Thank you. And the next?
G3PDH, yes. Malcolm.
Okay, Malcolm, thank you. And the next?
G0CBO, Rodney, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the next, please?
G3 EVA Steve, yes.
Great to see you, thank you. And the next? How about those two doubled a little while ago? How do I choose between you? If your surname begins with A to M, go ahead, please. Oh dear, that's not narrowed it down enough, has it? How do you get out of this one? Just go again, please, and if you were one of the ones who doubled a few minutes ago 3 times, then maybe just give a pause to see if the other person comes in first. I can't think of any other way of doing it. Alright, well, anybody else who wants to join us for the net so far, I think we have, tell me, how many do we have? 9 on the net so far, which is great. So remember, say yes if you've got something to contribute in terms of hobbies, or no if you just want to stand by and listen for the moment.
M0ZEH, James, yes.
Thank you, James. And anybody else?
Steve Nerding here.
I think that was maybe a double or maybe just not quite very clear. So can you go again, please, that caller, and go really slowly because it's quite a noisy signal. Thank you. So G7ERP standing by.
Golf Zero Hotel Zulu Papa Mervyn. Yes.
Excellent, Mervyn. Yes, first time I think we've ever worked on the air, you and I, isn't it? We've spoken on the phone, but never on the phone. So that's brilliant. I'm really pleased to hear you, especially tonight. Anybody else like to come in? This is David G7ERP with the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club Net. We're going to be talking hobbies in a moment, but first we're just having a call in. So if you want to talk about your other hobby, just say yes at the end, and if you just want to register that you're there, then just say no. This is G7ERP standing by.
20NOK. David, if I don't come back, it means I've been called out.
Okay, Nigel. If you do, are you going to be planning to talk about another hobby?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Who's next? G7ERP standing by.
Golf Zero Delta Charlie Alpha. No, Andrew.
Okay, Andrew, thank you very much for that. G7ERP standing by for other calls.
G4DYC, Mike, no, thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Next.
M0UKS, James, no.
No hobbies, James? I don't believe it. Okay, thank you very much for your call. Anybody else? Sorry, I really didn't get that. I've turned the volume up now, and I'm going to listen again, but can you go really slowly, please? That caller. I'm really sorry, I can't make that out, and nor can Tammy. Does anybody else make that out? I'll tell you what I will do. I will listen on the input just in case, but it's probably unlikely. So just go in one more time, please, and I'll listen on the input. Thanks. G7ERP standing by. Right, I think you're Mike 6 Victor Whiskey November, I believe. I hope that's right, but it is very, very weak, I'm afraid, into box. Not that that doesn't mean you're part of it, but we'll try and come back to you a bit later as well. Have you got something that you'd like to talk about as a hobby, please?
No, thank you, David.
Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you very much. Well, hopefully you'll be able to hear us okay anyway. Anybody else like to join us? This is David G7ERP with the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club Monday Night Net.
Mike 6 Kilo Yankee Foxtrot. Stephen, no.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Stephen, sorry. Anybody else like to join us? Okay, well, I think that was everybody, and we think if we got the call sign right, Mike 6 VWN, that was Sojan. I haven't seen or heard of you for ages, Sojan, so I hope we got that right. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to go around those people who said yes, and hopefully have a good conversation about other hobbies. And by the way, if you are just listening, and maybe you can't stay till the end, and roughly we'll go on till 8:30 or so, something like that. I'll let you know now that what we're hoping to do is use this as a basis of things that we can talk about and maybe see on Wednesday. All right, so it's going to be an experiment. We're going to try and make a club night on Wednesday, which should have been our AGM, of course, but we're going to try and go do another live stream. It was very popular last week, and hopefully some of those people who are talking tonight, maybe some others as well, will be able to bring in and actually you'll be able to see some of the results of their hobbies. So I hope that doesn't put anybody off. I was careful not to tell you until you've gone through the list, but let's hope we can have some fun with it. So starting with you then, Andy, good evening to you. M0NKR, G7ERP in the group.
Yeah, evening all, M0NKR in the group. My other hobby, totally nothing related to radio, electronics, or anything like that, is clay shooting. quite an expensive hobby. I don't know how far you want me to go into detail with this, David, or what?
Oh yeah, please give us enough to. I think one thing you could do tonight, for all of us, I'm sure, have got another hobby. We're passionate about it. That's one of the reasons we do it, and we choose to spend our spare time doing it. So maybe look upon it as I'm going to try and get some other people interested in my hobby. So tell us all about it, Andy. How do you get started, firstly?
Well, I suppose how you first get started, if you've got an interest in shooting of any type, then you go along to a club or book some lessons with someone and start off that way, and have a taster session. You know, it can be bought quite cheap, about £20 for a taster session. You know, 20 clays and a box of cartridges and some instruction. So that would be probably the first way if you're interested, and then if you get into it and you enjoy doing it, then the next stage would either be to join a club, become a member. Some clubs have loan guns that you can use. If you want to go and buy your own, then you apply for a shotgun certificate off the local constabulary, which costs around about £50–55 for a licence, providing you meet all the criteria. Then the place will allow you to have a shotgun, and you have to be able to store a shotgun securely, obviously, so you've got to have a safe and everything at home. It's a bit like radio. You can start off with cheap stuff, or you can go off and buy expensive shotguns. You know, you can pick up a second-hand one for as cheap as around about £50, all the way up to I've seen some for sale down in London. You go to Bisley and around London, then you're talking as much as a house for a shotgun. So that's probably it for a bit of a taster on clay shooting. Now, clay shooting is shooting a disc which is shot from a trap in the air to simulate pigeons. So you're not actually killing anything live, it's a simulated bird. And there's various disciplines that you can shoot clay shooting: skeet, down the line, ball trap, and sporting, and a few others. And there's some big competitions go on worldwide or even locally to have a go. G7 URP M0 NKR on the group.
G7 URP returning. Well, Andy, I'm going to move on to the next person, but if most other people listening to that were like Tammy and me, we're sitting here, and at one particular point we said, "What?" together, and that was when you said that the gun could cost the price of a house. I mean, are you serious? Are we talking sort of £100,000 plus?
Yes. I've been to a gun shop in Bisley called Kennedy's, and they have various levels of their shop. If you go in the main door, they're sort of budget guns up to about 5,000, shall I say. The next room through you go through is from 5,000 to about 75,000, and then the next room is about 75,000 to, I've seen some for, you know, £250,000. You're talking high-end Purdy, handmade, hand-engraved, hand-carved shotguns.
Wow. And that's the other word we've said. Wow, that's incredible. Right, something I didn't know, and I expect lots of people didn't know. Later on, by the way, we're hoping that, you know, we'll have a conversation about some of these things, and people will have a chance to ask others about what their hobby is, and of course everybody will have a chance to ask. So anyway, let's go around now though to Jan, and he's M7 JPC from G7 URP in the group. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. This is M7 JPC, and name's Jan. My second hobby, spent in the water. I'm a scuba diver. Can't do much at this weather. It has been a few nice days, but also we are grounded to do that because of the virus, of course. Back to you.
Well, that's interesting, Jan. So why are you grounded? Because we all were thinking everything is airborne and things. Are there dangers then doing something underwater?
No, negative. We all think it's safe, but according to the government and the police regulations and everything, it's a non-essential transport to go somewhere nowhere to a lake, and there's nothing much in the neighborhood. That's why we have to travel by at least, you can go to the Norfolk coast. Then we have to go some nice dive places in Lincolnshire, but that's already a 3-hour drive, so it's not really essential to go out. That's why it's not allowed.
Right, I totally understand now. Okay, yep, certainly social gathering, etc., we can't do at the moment. All right, thank you, Jan, for that. Now round to Steve, 2E0SZD, G7URP in the group.
2E0SZD. Good evening, David. Good evening to Tammy. You can nod your head now, Tammy. And good evening to everybody else. What a fine gathering we have here this evening. This may surprise a few people. A couple of members in the club know. We're a fairly new arrival in the Norfolk area. We moved to the village of Filby a few years ago now. With my other hat on, I'm chairman of Great Yarmouth Model Boat Club, a very active model boat club, and we were sailing 2 days a week until the recent events, and we have an arrangement with the council where we use the Venetian waterways that's just come to the end of its restoration project right on the North Beach area in Great Yarmouth. So when we're sailing, we always have a lot of spectators. We're a financially very successful club. We have a very buoyant and active membership, and we do all sorts of stuff, although not at the moment. Some of the guys in the club will probably say that I'm deemed as being an expert in radio control. That's probably because I've been doing radio control models virtually all of my life. I also have another very intense hobby. Some people in the club know this. In my garage I have 3 classic cars, and I'm involved with a lot of car events that we've become invited to since we moved to Norfolk. I have 1 modern classic and 2 antique vehicles. Hope you're ready for this, guys and girls. The modern one is a Jaguar F-Type that was a custom build. It was built by Jaguar's Special Vehicle Operations Division and is a very high-powered, very snazzy-looking modern car. It will become a classic because mine was built as a special order and is the only one configured in its particular way. The other 2 classic cars, hope everyone's sitting down. I have a Ford GT40, which hails back to the pinnacle, I guess, of Le Mans, back to the 1960s. And also I have a 1942 American Willys Jeep that didn't see any frontline service. It was built in the States alongside 600,000 other Willys Jeeps, and it came across on a ship and spent all its working life at RAF Bassingbourn down near Cambridgeshire, when that was used by the US Air Force for the 8th Bomb Group, and it was used to carry aircrew out to their aircraft, including the very famous aircraft known as the Memphis Belle. So 3 classic cars in the garage and a couple of domestic cars in the drive. Previous to moving here, we lived in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire, and when we were down south, I was chairman of a model boat club there and also a very large model engineering club. So I have hobbies coming out of my every pore, including a garden railway. So David and Tammy, I'll hand it back round to you. 2E0SZD, passing it on to G7URP.
G7URP returning. Wow, what a list. That is fantastic. One of the reasons that, or one of the things that inspired me to choose hobbies as the talk subject tonight, which is of course because at this time when we have to spend more time at home and often indoors when the weather's not right, you know, I think it's great that so many people have got hobbies. It must be very difficult if you haven't got any hobbies at times like this. So that's what inspired me to do it. Right, let's go round to Scott, find out what his other hobby or hobbies are. M0BLH G7URP in the group.
G0MQG on frequency.
Okay, Tony, we'll come to you later, if that's all right. Are you going to talk about your hobby or not?
Yes, I will do. I'm happy to fit in whenever.
All right, Tony, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. So, Scott, round to you. M0BLH, G7URP in the group.
G7URP, M0BLH in group. Evening to everybody on the net. Like Jan, I also do scuba diving. I've been doing it since like the about 1980s, so I've done it for quite a while. I've gained my instructor status, and due to the virus and everything else and restrictions, I'm now having to do my lectures, my trainees over Skype, which is going okay at the minute. Obviously we can't do any practicals yet, but we can do the lectures over Skype. Diving's taken me to lots of places around the world. I've been fantastic, but I also have done some fantastic trips in the UK. I think my favourite is the west coast of Scotland and also Ireland. They've been actually fantastic as well. I do prefer diving sort of wrecks, so there's a lot of history involved in the wrecks I dive. And I moved over to what they call technical diving a few years ago. So I don't dive conventional diving gas bottles, as it were. I dive on a rebreather system, which circulates your gas around, so I can stay down for longer. And that, would you believe, has also come into its own because the King's Lynn Hospital were lacking in some chemical for their respirators, and the chemical I use in my rebreather system scrubs out carbon dioxide, and I was contacted by a local dive shop if I could maybe have my chemical, which I use in my rebreather, on standby for the King's Lynn Hospital, which it is at the minute, so I'm waiting for a call if they need to use any of my chemical I use for my rebreather. Anybody wants to have a go of conventional diving, you can just do a tri dive, doesn't cost very much at all, and an instructor will put you in a pool with the equipment on and let you have a swim around. So that's basically my other hobby. Been doing it for quite a while, thoroughly enjoy it, and yeah, thoroughly enjoy being underwater. So back to you, David. G7URP with M0BLH in the group.
G7URP returning. Great Scott, thank you. Oh, great Scott. I just thought could be a cool. And I bet you've had people say that to you before. Anyway, that was great, Scott. Thank you very much. I'm sure others will have some questions about some of these aspects of hobbies. That's what I'm hoping, so we can really have a conversation later on as well. Right now, though, let's go round to Mike M0TVG from G7URP in the group.
Mike here, M0TVG. I was just sort of chuckling over something. Okay, good evening, David, and very good evening to all stations on the net tonight. Well, my hobby is fairly simple. It doesn't need any equipment whatsoever. It's a hobby called bell ringing. It's a very interesting hobby, but it can't take place at the moment, of course. The bell ringing floor is only about 9 foot by 12 foot, and that needs to hold or accommodate the 6 bell ringers and possibly 1 or 2 others. So it's a bit out of bounds at the moment, but it's a very interesting. I can't say I'm particularly clever or experienced, but we go there frequently. We make a few friends, of course, in the village of Wroxham, join together. We join together on a Tuesday evening and make an awful lot of noise. And sometimes we actually make it sound reasonably decent. But it's a nice thing to go to. It's a nice thing to take part in, and it doesn't require any equipment. Well, not on my part, not any personal equipment at all. We just go there and the bells are there. It's anyway, I can't say much more on that really. Bell ringing. All towers are looking for new members, and just find out when they're practicing and pop along and have a go. G7URP from Mike 0 Tango Victor Golf.
G7URP returning. Well, Mike, that's brilliant. Yeah, bell ringing. That is something that at the moment, I guess, all our churches are going to be very quiet, aren't they? Malcolm, round to you. G3PDH, G7URP in the group.
Okay, G3PDH. Good evening, David. Tammy, good evening to anybody else on frequency, of course, as well. Good to hear so many people on. Well, my other hobby, although I see it as a way of life, is motorhoming and caravanning. We first started with this in 1980 when we first purchased the what is now the iconic classic VW Combi, air-cooled vehicle, which we used to use to go to France. And when we look at them now, compared to the modern motorhomes, we do wonder how we managed with ourselves and 2 children in it, having our trips over to France. So after that, we progressed through other models, and then whilst working overseas, we also had we hired motor caravans in Canada and also in New Zealand, which was a very nice way of getting around those countries and seeing the scenery over there. And on return to the UK, we then moved over to caravans, having a bit more space, particularly with the family all going together on holiday. And then ultimately, when retiring in 2001, we went back to motorhomes. And of course, since then, we've had various models right up until now. But mainly our trips were on the continent to France and Spain and Germany and Italy, Switzerland, Andorra, Luxembourg, various places on the continent. And we take our bikes with us as well, so we've got bicycles that have covered thousands of miles on the continent as well, which is rather good. Of course, the main advantage really as well with this hobby is I can combine radio with motor caravanning. So it's good fun to be able to operate portable from the motor caravan when in these continental locations, talking back to various friends in the UK or elsewhere, in fact, as well. One of the problems which we're finding now, of course, though, is QRM on sites is becoming very noticeable with switched mode power supplies in the vans, LED lighting on sites, all this kind of thing. So I'm afraid the noise level is becoming very high. And the final thing to say, of course, is at the moment, of course, all the camping sites in the country are closed, travel is down, stopped, so unfortunately we cannot really continue with that hobby properly at the moment, other than cleaning the van in the front garden and wishing we were out. Hopefully one day it will return before too long. Back to you, David. G7URP, G3PDH.
G7URP returning. Thank you very much, Malcolm. We've had quite a diversity so far, except who'd have thought already by now, when we've gone through about 7 contacts, that we've had 2 scuba divers. What are the chances of that? Right, Rod, what's your other hobbies? G0CBO from G7URP in the group.
Yeah, G7URP in the group. G0CBO. I'll just check I got it. Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, my other hobby, I'm very, very keen on the environment, actually. I spent many, many years as a volunteer for the Broads Authority and also assisting on the Horsey Seal project. And I'm very, very keen on the coast and wildlife in general. In fact, I think few of you actually know, I've got a place up at Winterton-on-Sea. And during the summer months, I'm normally there about 2 or 3 days a week, just walking up and down the valley and along the coast, just observing all the wildlife and all the different species of birds, etc. I know a lot of people know that we're quite well off, actually, for wildlife in this particular county, and there's some absolutely fantastic sites, and a lot of it is quite remote. And so I spend a lot of time sort of hiking about and observing the wildlife in general. And it's really peaceful, and it really puts your mind at ease when you see what else is actually going on with all the various forms of wildlife. And the seal project at Horsey has really taken off. I was involved with that right from the word go, more or less, when we didn't have too many seals, which were actually using the beach at Horsey. But over the period of time, the seal population, as we know, has dramatically increased, and since they put the Scroby Sands wind farm up, it's increased even more. The sea level and the sand level seem to be increasing every winter, and you get this massive amount of seals up. The only downside to it, which unfortunately is the media pick up on it and they advertise it a lot, and hence the last 2 or 3 years they've had problems with the amount of people that are down there. But that's what the seal warden does. They actually educate, advise, and sort of try and keep the seals safely away from the public and also people with dogs and everything. But superb hobby, and we live in a lovely county. Back to you there, David. G7URP in the group, G0CBO.
G0CBO returning. Thank you very much for that, Rod. Another outdoor hobby, which I guess at the moment is difficult to do. Now, it's 8 o'clock at the moment, and of course we're not going to finish now, but I thought, as we used to do at 8 o'clock, it would be good for a few notices maybe. I'd like to firstly mention that we will be doing something again this Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. on video, streaming as we did last week. Also going to try and see if we can stream to the BATC website as well as Facebook Live, which we did last week, but it was very successful. Over 2,500 people saw that site, and over 100 and some odd actually watched the video. Either 60 odd live watched it, and then some people afterwards. So it's a good way to communicate, not just with us, but anybody else looking around maybe for a hobby or something else that might be interesting. So that'll be Wednesday night, 7:30. I'll let you have more details, of course, in the newsletter nearer the time. Just a few other notices as well, though. Andrew 2E0LTA has kindly come forward and said he's going to run, hopefully next week's net. He said he'd run a net, and I hope he'll run next Monday's night's net here, same time, 7:30. So that's Andrew, and we're looking for lots of other people as well. You only have to run it once, but I don't really want to do this every week. I think it's much more healthy to move it round, and as long as you've got reasonable access to NB, you can easily do it. It's not difficult, just writing down some call signs and calling people in. It's really all it takes. So that would be great if we can have some other volunteers, please, for sort of later in the month. A few things. There's another newsletter went out today, which has got one extra item on it, Speaker of the Year. We're asking you to vote for your favourite Speaker of the Year 2019. And for the first time, you'll also be able to vote for people who gave their talks by Skype. For many years, this was just for members who gave talks, but of course, in these changing times that the club has been having, lots of speakers have come from abroad, and we thought we really ought to extend it to them. So if you're a NARC paid-up member and you were attended some of the talks last year, then please vote. The details are all on the website. One other thing I think I want to mention now, Donart has kindly offered some books. He's authored 3 books, which are normally he sells on Amazon, but he's kindly offered them for anybody in the club who'd like to download them and read them for free. He thought it might help people in times when maybe they're a bit bored trying to find something to do. So if you want to know how to get those, just go to the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club website or look at the newsletter that went out later this afternoon, and you'll find out how to download those. So that's my notices. Thanks for putting up with that. I'm now going to go round to Steve, G3EVA, G7URP. What's your other hobby, Steve?
G7URP, G3EVA. Well, listening to the list of other people's hobbies, I was surprised at how many of them I have as well. I shoot rifle and shotguns. I have radio-controlled boats and drones. Although I don't go under the water with scuba, I used to stay on top of the water quite a lot. I used to windsurf and surf, and that brings me on to my camping bit. I had 13 Volkswagen transporters over the years, converted to caravans. So I used to go down to Cornwall quite a lot surfing, and the vehicle of choice is obviously the Volkswagen camper van. I did once have a caravan, but I didn't like that much. Going in the car, that thing behind you. I had a similar to GTE, which is like 3 litres. That was about the best thing to tow a caravan with, but still wasn't fast enough for me. Yes, I'm keen on the coast. We do a lot of dog walking. I don't know if you call that a hobby, but it's great fun. And my main hobbies that I do nowadays, apart from playing on the radio now and again, is music. I collect guitars and amplifiers, and I play in a couple of bands, which is a bit of a hobby. But my main hobby, which we're not allowed to do at the moment, unfortunately, because it's antisocial and unnecessary journeys, is motorcycling. I have 3 motorcycles that I ride various times of the year. One of them's a sort of more of a toury sort of bike, and I have a scooter, a modern scooter, which is called a maxi scooter, 400 cc's, with plenty of fairing on it, so it's nice and weatherproof virtually, as long as you're moving. Suzuki 500cc. Bit of good news. I've just noticed on the nothing to do with hobbies, but I just noticed that we're getting 16 or 17 degrees next Sunday and Monday. Although we can't go out to use it much, so you'll have to make your walks a bit longer. And I wonder what yours and Tammy's hobbies are, David. Back to you, G7URP, G3EVA.
G7URP returning. Oh dear. Well, that wasn't a put-up job, was it? You didn't ask that. I don't mind sharing it briefly, although I was really hoping we'd just be talking about other people's hobbies. But my other hobby mainly, I guess, I do love radio and electronics in particular. That's why I suppose my real interest is of the hobby, and video, which has become quite useful in this part of it. So that is a real hobby of mine. I love playing around with the electronics and the video side of it. And the other one, though, is railways. I'm sure lots of people know that already. It is part of my job as well now, although it's only in recent years, both model and real. And I guess model railways, for like a lot of people, is probably the most accessible ways of having a hobby to do with railways. Even though most people I know, in fact everybody I know who's interested in model railways, are also interested in the real thing. Not always the other way around. So both those things, don't have much time for those things. I'm not complaining, but doing things for this club takes up quite a lot of my time, so I guess I really should put, actually quite on the top of my list is trying to run a radio club with lots of other colleagues help, of course, but that does take a lot of my time up. But very enjoyable, and I'm just so glad at times like this that I've got lots of other hobbies. We might be able to persuade Tammy in a minute to tell you what hers are. She's shaking her head, but I think we might be able to. We'll do that in a minute, though, maybe. So thank you very much for that, Steve. Right, James, round to you. I don't know what your other... I've known you a long time, haven't I? But I don't know what your other hobby is, so maybe you'll tell us. M0ZAH, G7URP in the group.
G7URP in the group, M0ZAH. Well, firstly, good evening, everyone, and thank you for running the net again, David. Lovely turnout as last week, so very impressive. Yeah, it's very interesting hearing other people's hobbies and how alike they are. So a bit like Steve, I like my motorcycling. I have a CBR 650F. It's coming on to 4 years old now. It's only done 2,000 miles. That's how often I get to ride it. It looks pristine though. I suppose one of my hobbies is cleaning it, probably. My other main hobbies is programming, as you may know, David, actually for work and some of the stuff I've done. Programming microcontrollers and electronics. But one of my main favourite hobbies, other than amateur radio, is networking and Unix-based systems, open source, and contributing to open source projects. I'm a huge fan of FreeBSD and Linux derivatives. So many different things. And I suppose the other one is my Mac. I recently got back into, you'll be happy, David, into Mac OS, of course. And I suppose that could be counted as my hobby because that allows me to perform most of my other hobbies, and without it, I wouldn't have anything. So they're pretty much the main ones. Motorcycling, amateur radio is definitely the main one, but motorcycling and electronics. Of course, I've got a funny feeling that there won't be much of that this year, unfortunately. So back to you, David. G7URP, M0ZAH.
G7URP returning. Oh yes, of course I should have thought about motorcycling for you, but yeah, brilliant. A list of hobbies for you as well. Now, Mervyn, let's find out what your other hobby is. G0HZP from G7URP in the group.
Yeah, G7URP from G0HZP. Well, my main hobby is volunteering work for the Guide Dogs for the Blind Association. As you all know, I had my first guide dog in 1984, and when I had my second one in 1989, I asked if I could join the local fundraising committee and applied to the Guide Dog Association to be one of their speakers. they said they've got enough inside for the time being. But when Tom passed away in 1993 and 1994, I was then, in 1995, I was then accepted to do a weekend training course in learning how to speak and how to perfect one's voice so one could be heard. So in October this year I celebrate 25 years, and I go around to various schools, brownies, guides, clubs, women's institutes, senior citizens, telling them how guide dogs are bred and trained, and how they are trained to guide a blind person like me safely and freely and independently around the streets of where one lives. And as I say, my attitude is that I mustn't take and not give the Arthur, the Guide Dog Association has given me back my independence, and I can walk the streets the same as you. And the Guide Dog Association pays all my guide dog vet bills, all for the dog's food. So, and of course I'm also out and about rattling pins in various stores in the city, and also in September we've been given permission to man some of the streets of Norwich and do collecting. So that is my main hobby interest, besides radio, and of course following football, cricket, snooker, and darts, and listening to and going to country music shows in and around the county of Norfolk. As I say, thanks for listening to me. As I say, I look forward to returning to the club as and when it does actually be allowed to come. And also, David, could you ask Sonny if he's free any time, and he could come round and have a look at my other radios and playing up on. Anyway, thanks for listening, and how about hearing from you, Tammy?
G7URP returning. Well, firstly, I'm sure everybody else listening would echo my thoughts and thinking that what a selfless thing to do. For those who don't know Merv, you are blind and you have a guide dog, and for you to name your main other hobby as fundraising and helping create awareness for guide dogs for the blind, to help them, I think is just such a fantastic thing to give something back. So all credit to you. That's just really wonderful. I will get a message to Sonny for you. Obviously, we all have to be careful, you can imagine, and in terms of social distancing and everything else. But of course, if you've got a problem with the radio, we'll see if we can help you somehow like that and do it safely as well. And yep, I have just told Tammy, and I'm going to try and persuade her to come in after the next person, which is Nigel 2E0NLK. Oh, I'm being hit now, from G7URP in the group.
G7URP 2E0NLK. First of all, I will apologise if I suddenly have to go, because unfortunately we still have to provide a service, so that's just one of the natures of the job. But good evening, everyone, and nice to hear other people's hobbies. Mine, what I've got into, is fairly new. I've only been doing this one since November, because everyone knows I do me fishing, either beach or on the boat. But I've got a new one since November, which came about by my boy, actually. He wanted a day down at Thetford doing airsoft. Everyone would have passed that at some point or another on the way down to Thetford, or if they're travelling down the A11, you'd see it on your right hand side, or on your left hand side if you're coming from Thetford. I got quite enjoyed it, and being behold, the other half treated me to a day for my birthday. And basically, you only have to do 3 events to to get a UKAR licence or UKARA. Well, in a licence is a number, which then allows you to purchase any airsoft weapon in whatever colour you want. Without that, you can only have it in two-tone, being blue and orange, red and green, or whatever colour they send it in. So I've done the third event, and being behold, got UKARA number, which then allowed me to purchase an airsoft weapon, or an RIF, because they're real imitation firearms. They look exactly like a real firearm, what the MOD use, or anyone use. You can also get them in a shotgun version as well. So I purchased the M4, which we actually use, believe it or not, 6mm BBs, and yes, you do hit each other with them. It's not. Sometimes it can be painful. Very often you don't feel it, but sometimes you do feel the odd one if you got too close to someone. Part and parcel of the game, I suppose. Several times a year down at Thetford they have what they term MilSims, which is a military simulated battle on Stanter battle area. The MOD let us use that at a price, fair dues. So like we said, it's 6mm BBs. Mine fires. I can put 6mm or 0.20 grams or 0.25 gram BBs in. Mine will take both. Some will go higher. They can go up to 40 grams. It's all good fun. It gets away, gets out in the day, get out in the fresh air, but unfortunately we're all grounded. So just for some people, just to be noted, we do use biodegradable BBs, so when they get wet they will break up and dissolve and don't leave any traces in the ground. So we do look at the environment as well as firing these around, and it's all done under supervision with marshals, with all safety equipment, eye protection, face protection, everything. So and it's not really that expensive. I'll put it back to you, David. G7URP 20, okay?
G7URP returning. Wow, I've never heard of airsoft, but I guess when you start talking about BBs, I remember thinking about the little things that little toy rifles and stuff fire, and I guess it's that sort of thing, but with lots of protection, because BB can also stand for ball bearings. But anyway, maybe at the end, some people will have questions for it, and they'll come on to you. So we've nearly reached the end of the initial list, and then, of course, I'll ask for anybody else to join us. So skipping a few people who said they were listening, but they didn't want to talk about their hobby, we get round to Tony, G0MQG, G7URP in the group.
G0MQG. Okay, well, thanks for letting me in, and good evening, everybody. Some of you may know what my other hobby is, because you've seen it. Sorry about that. You may have seen it up the club sometime or other, and that's classic cars. It's something I've had an interest in for a lot of years. It was only about 4 years ago I finally got myself one, and as some of you will probably know, I've got a Mark 1 Escort. The reason I picked a Mark 1 Escort is I've always had a bit of a passion for them. I learned to drive in one, and I passed my driving test in one many years ago. And about 4 years ago I bought the one that some of you will have seen up the club. It's a South African car, and I believe they drive on the left over there, same as we do, so the cars are right-hand drive. So you don't have the added complication of trying to drive a left-hand drive car in this country if you import one. I personally didn't import it. It was done by another chap, and I
I bought the car off the chap who did import it. It's low mileage for the year, at least I think it is, as best as I can tell. It's currently clocked up about 24,000 miles, which for a car that's, let me see, 46 years old, I don't think is too bad. I can't be 100% sure that's not gone round the clock, but I don't think it has. So that's my other interest. There's an article in a classic Ford magazine a month or two ago. Another chap had got one that was even the same colour as mine. So I sent an email into the magazine pointing out that I got one as well, and they want to publish an article, so we'll see what happens with that one. So that's my other hobby. Unfortunately, like several other people's hobbies, it's laid up in my garage at the moment because, quite simply, I'm in self-isolation. So other than walk down the garage occasionally and just run the engine for a little while, there's not much I can do with it. It just sits there, and as most of you know, I've retired recently, so I spend a little time working on that, as well as delving in people's rigs with soldering irons. So that's my other hobby. Back to you, David, from G0MQG.
G7URP returning. All right, Tony, thank you very much. Yeah, I've seen that brown old Escort outside the club, and I guess that must be old because it was taking me right back to my youth anyway. Brilliant. Now, I nearly got away with forgetting about two special requests for Tammy to tell you what she wants, and she doesn't often get on the radio, so this will probably be almost the first, I think, in terms of NB anyway. So anyway, Tammy, tell them what your other hobbies are. M0TC, G7URP in the group.
M0TC here. Yeah, my other hobbies are football. I like watching football, any type of football really. Getting into the ladies' football now as well, which is quite good. I also like making things, which can be with model railways. I was dragged up from my parents with model railways, so and now I work with model railways as well, so there's no getting away from it. Quite like doing electronic kits and things like that. And then I also like the modern young person thing of the gaming consoles, so that you can lose quite a lot of hours and things like that. So there you go, they're my hobbies. This is M0TC, back to you, G7URP.
You will have no idea how rare that was, listeners. Brilliant. Right, well, thank you very much. It's taken us a little while to get round, but hopefully you'll all agree that we've heard some really interesting hobbies there, and I'm sure people have got either some other people want to join us or people have got questions about that. I'm just going to go through the topics and the different subjects and the different hobbies that people have had. I mean, we've got clay shooting, we've got scuba diving, we've got chairman of Model Boat Club and classic cars, scuba diving again, bell ringing, motorhomes and caravans, environment. The camper vans again has come up with motorcycling and music, motorcycling again, volunteering for the Blind Association, for the Guide Dogs for the Blind, airsoft and football and gaming, and of course classic cars again with Tony. And me, I guess, as well, if you include me in railways, model and real thing. So a real good range of things. Before we go around to anybody else, and I don't want to hog it because I want other people to get in as well, but can I tell you what my thought is for Wednesday night, as I hadn't got any other suggestions, but people do seem to be keen to tell them about their hobbies. Now, some of these hobbies are things that not only will you be able to tell us about, but hopefully you'll be able to show us either pictures, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, how we can do that, or even live, you know, fixing things or things on video, on Skype or whatever, where you could show us things, a scuba diving outfit or whatever. I mean, I think Scott's a prime candidate there. He says he's running courses by Skype, so you, my man, are just the sort of person we need on Wednesday night, because we're going to try and invite quite a few people to join us. We'll call you in, and hopefully you'll be able to share us a bit more of your hobby in terms of with video and sound as well. If you don't want to do that, or if you can't do that because of the practical aspects of it, then maybe you can send us photos and things, and I'll tell you more about that in a little while. But first, let me shut up and listen for anybody else who'd like to join us on the net, and maybe anybody else who wants to talk about their hobby. This is G7URP, now standing by for any calls.
G8PPE. Yes, John.
Excellent, John. Good to hear you. Anybody else?
Echo 1, Tango Alpha Fox.
And your name, please?
Sorry, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? Okay, right. So both of you, I guess, are going to want something to talk about your hobby as well, and then we'll throw it open to anybody to ask anybody else about anything they've heard tonight. So round to you first, John, G8VPE from G7URP in the group.
G8VPE. Yes, okay. Well, my other hobby used to be a very prickly subject, cacti breeding and nurturing. I once had over 400 different species, as apart from all the duplicates and the others that were being bred on, and still 2 large greenhouses. But I did lose a load. I couldn't afford to keep the heating up at one point in my life, so I did lose them over one winter quite a lot. Yes, I've had a go with a shotgun, did own my own clay pigeon shooting and keeping the wood pigeon population down for local farmers in the past, and of course motorcycling, another past interest. But at the moment there's only one major hobby, and that seems to be amateur radio. So there's my contribution for this evening. I've been listening right through from the start, and I thought, well, I'll tack in on the end. I think you're going to have to get a second session of this, because we're so close to 8:30, and we haven't really, between us, discussed all the various hobbies. So I think that is crying out for a second session, David. G7URP in the group, G8VPE.
G7URP returning. Yeah, agreed, John. Well, time does just fly, but I thought having a theme would be better than maybe just sort of each other saying hello and that sort of thing. And that's why I want to extend it to Wednesday, really. We're going to try and bring in as many different technologies as we can, not just Skype, but other things as well, and there'll be opportunities to text and enter questions in, hoping to stream to 2 mediums this time as well, which will be good if we can, and you'll be able to ask questions that way, or even maybe combine the radio as well. We've got a bit of working out to do. We're going to try and do that tomorrow night. So, and that's what we're going to do on Wednesday. One quick thing, John, if I may, a simple sort of almost a one-word answer. Like lots of people, we keep a cactus. They say you don't need to give it much water, but should you give it more water than, or what? How much water should you give the average domestic cactus on a windowsill? Back to you, G8VPE, G7URP.
G8VPE depends on a lot of factors. If it's on a good sunny windowsill, south-facing, depends a lot whether there's central heating in the house, or I mean, normally in the greenhouse they're kept cold and dry, very dry, over the winter. But as soon as the daffodils come out, you can start watering. I used to give mine a little drop every week, and then a damn good soaking sometimes. In fact, I have been known to sit the pots in the bath and weigh them down and let them take their own moisture up, and let them drain. Come September, end of September, normally that's the time to withdraw watering, but if there's a lot of heating and they are indoors in a house, just a teaspoon every now and again through the winter. So there we go. And they will flower every year. The 7-year rule is old mother's law, yeah. Old folklore. No, wonderful flowers on some of them. G8VPE.
Thank you very much, John. I hope that wasn't just for our benefit. I hope lots of people took that in. If you bred them, you should know all there is to know about that, and I've certainly learned some things from that about when and when not to water. Right, thanks for being patient, Dave. Round to you, 2E1TAF from G7URP in the group.
G7URP, 2E1TAF. Firstly, it was so nice to hear a net on here on a Monday evening. I haven't heard a net on here for many a year, I think, but I was only saying to somebody the other day about your club. Me and the XYL, she's licensed as well. We used to be members when you were at the airport, but due to work and stuff, haven't sort of been
membership. But yeah, it's nice, so nice to hear a net on there. I'm really, really pleased that there's been a net on there this evening. Regarding hobbies, say the wife, she's licensed M3VB, been licensed many a year. She keeps bees, and got a hive in the garden there. Did have 2 hives, but the beast from the east killed both the hives, so we lost everything when we had that. So she's now building her colony back up again in the last sort of 18 months. And touch wood, they're looking pretty well this year. My real hobbies, I sort of repair radios and bits and pieces there. But my main one is I build N-scale. You'd know about N-scale, David. Model coal mines with working headgear, and I don't build them from sort of kits. I sort of scratch build them really, and then I sell them to people who want them. So I'm currently doing one for a museum down in Wales, but I haven't touched it for over a year because I've had a bit of mental illness and haven't been able to do them and just can't concentrate long enough to do them. So that's been sat on my shelf now for well over a year since I last touched it, but that's probably 3/4 of the way done. But I do all the interiors of the buildings as well, so I make little filing cabinets and little computers to go on the desk and put the figures in there and the signs, all based around the mid-80s when the miners' strike was on. As I'm from the South Wales mining village there, and our valley was greatly affected by the closure of the pits, the steelworks, the power stations, the wire rope manufacturers, the chain manufacturers, you name it, that's gone. So that was one of my little hobbies, and the other one is vintage lorries. I've restored one vintage lorry a few years back. I said I'd never do another one, and that was a big scamble. That was the very last one that was built, and there's only 5 of them left, and so that was a very rare truck, and I built that and restored it. That came from Beccles, from VC Cooks, and took me and the XYL a few years to restore that. And then when I first had my first breakdown, which must have been seven years ago, I suppose, something like that, maybe 8 years. No, it's not that long, probably 4 years. Then I decided to sell it, and so that went. But I've since bought another truck now with a big bonnet on it, which came back from the Falkland Islands after the war. They were all built and sent down there when the war finished to build the new airport at Stanley, and when it came back, that was used as a breakdown truck, and I bought it off a chap without seeing it. He just sent me a photograph, so I said, yeah, I'll buy it, and found somebody to bring it up on a low loader, so I've been sort of doing that, but haven't touched that since sort of last autumn really, due to the weather. But that's the sort of thing we do this way. But as I say, it's very, very nice to hear a net on the 2 meters again. Really enjoyable. So thank you to everybody who's called in there. I would have called in earlier, but I'd gone for my bath. 2 Echo 1 Tango Alpha Fox, G7 URP in the group. Over.
G7 URP returning. Thank you very much, Dave. Wow, what a list, eh? We've covered everything there, from beekeeping to shooting to airsoft to bell ringing to scuba diving to trains to environment, and forgive me if I haven't mentioned your motorcycling, classic cars, cactus. I mean, who'd have thought? Right, brilliant. So it's now 8:30, but I don't see any reason why we have to stop it now. I'm happy to carry on a bit longer if you want, especially for anybody who wants to know a little bit more about one of the hobbies they've heard about. And for those of you who have talked about your hobby, as I said, I'd really like you to get in touch with me if you're willing to help us with something on Wednesday to make a bit more of it and tell us a bit more about your hobby. Maybe show us with some pictures that you can send me, or ideally do something live as well, maybe over Skype or something like that. But as I said, I will talk about it a bit more at the end. But let's give other people a chance now to come in. We had several people who didn't want to talk about their hobby, but maybe they've got something to say. So to you or to anybody else who's listening who wants to know something about one of those hobbies, fire away. This is G7 URP with the group. Really? No questions? Come on. I'm sure there's something that you've heard there that you'd like to know a bit more about. I don't want to call people in individually because that's not what it's about. So anybody like to know anything more about what someone said tonight?
G0MXN.
John, G0MXN, G7URP. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Good evening, David, and everybody. Listened with interest. hobby. Engage Railway was, as you know, David, my wife Shirley, 2E1HAO, who's no longer with us, had a 9-foot by 6-foot Engage layout, which she built herself, and just interested in the buildings side of it, that she lit every single one of them with those little wheat bulbs, which she ran from the controller, and alternated the on and off so that it looked as though the place was actually inhabited, all the cottages and factories and God knows what else, street lights, traffic lights, the whole lot. She did the whole lot herself, so that's a nice happy memory, because it is now incorporated in my eldest boy's, Christopher's, in his railway layout, which is 19-foot by 11. So the hobby keeps going, David. G0MXN.
G7ERP returning. Well, John, I'm glad to know it got a really nice home. You're not interested yourself then in the actual train side of it?
No, I'm a 303 rifle shooter myself, as my hobby.
Oh, right, okay. Well, you're at least the third or fourth person, I think, in this net tonight to talk about rifle shooting and shooting as being a popular hobby. I must admit, I thought there might be a few more interested in radio control or even trains, because that seems to be something that, but maybe that's just what I'm interested in myself, and I tend to tune in then to people interested in that. But anyway, thank you for sharing that, John. And for those of you listening and you don't know what N-gauge is quite small. It's half the size of the most popular gauge, which you might think of for trains, which is 00 gauge. So it's 1 in 148, as my wife just told me, or in fact 2 millimeters to the foot, if you really want to know how the size of it. So you can fit an awful lot in that size board. When it sounded a big board anyway, but in N-gauge you can fit a big layout in. Anybody else like to come in and ask about anything that you've heard tonight about hobbies, or maybe just talk about a hobby you've got? Back to you, G7URP, standing by.
David, it's Steve, 2E0SD. Just to titivate everybody, because hopefully one day life will return to normal. If it happens before the winter sets in, at one club evening night, myself and Sonny are threatening and turning up in 2 military vehicles, and Mervyn, G08ZP, will probably smile at this. In my Willys Jeep, there's a replica carbine, which has to be in a bag, because if you didn't know so, you would think it was the genuine article, and therefore, to be legally compliant and not scare the public, it has to stay in its bag, and when we're at shows, I don't stand there waving it around. The other thing I promised a few people I would do, including Steve, G3EVA, is if we get a really nice evening when the club service resumes to normal, I will make a lot of noise and turn up in the GT40. Back to you, David.
G7URP returning. Wow, well that sounds like a lot of promises there. Are you up for sharing some of this stuff, maybe with some pictures or a Skype or something on Wednesday, Steve?
Might be able to do something. The Skype thing might be a bit of a challenge for reasons I won't bore you, but yeah, I'll listen in and see what we can do.
All right, yeah, we'll talk either tonight after the end of the net, really, or maybe over email or text or something the next few days. There's several other ways we can do it, including things like FaceTime and other technology things. Just trying to really, the whole point of this, I know it's a while since the club has really done a Monday night net, but you know, at times when we've all got to spend more time at home, all of us, safely, then surely there's never been a better time to communicate, and that's really why I think it's important that the club offers these things. Some of us have got plenty of interest and things to get on with, but some of us haven't, and you know, the radio club, the social side of the radio club is really important. Some of us are on our own and miss the company of the club every Wednesday night. So for all those reasons, and lots of other good ones, you know, this is why we're trying to bring back things like this Monday night net and Wednesday as well. But it does depend on you, all of you out there listening, and we need quite a few people to take part to make this interesting, and because I think we're going to be doing this for quite some weeks and maybe even a few months, aren't we? So good. Anybody else like to come back on anything that they've heard tonight on any of these hobbies? This is G7URP standing by.
G3EVA.
Yeah, G3EVA, G7URP. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, maybe if we could get a link either with Zoom or Skype or what have you, I could show you a couple of my guitars and tell you some stories about them when we toured Spain and what have you, if anybody's interested. And maybe if Roger's listening, we could play some heavy metal for him.
Oh, G7ERP returning. Oh, brilliant. I think this has got the makings of doing something good. Yeah, that's a definite yes, Steve. This is going to be fun. Just watch the copyright. We haven't really got the we can't really although it's not going to be public, is it? So we should be right for public performing. I say we haven't got a PRS license or anything like that. So but anyway, yeah, we'll work out the details between us. That's brilliant. We've written that down. Brilliant. And Scott, can I put you on the spot and ask you, maybe there's some things you can share with us over you've obviously got an established Skype link, and maybe share with us something of your hobby, and I think it was also part of your career as well. M0BLH, G7URP in the group.
G7URP, M0BLH in the group. It's not actually my career. I stay on top of the water for my career. That's only my hobby. Yeah, I'll share something. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do it, but I can drop you a quick email and we can have a chat after this, and we can sort something out, I'm sure. Back to you, G7URP with M0BLH in the group.
Yeah, thanks very much, Scott. That'd be brilliant if we can do something on that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot with it, but for anybody else who's done this but just doesn't want to do Skype or can't do Skype for whatever reason or anything, or FaceTime or any of the other technologies that we can use, maybe you can send me some pictures of your hobby, even, that would be really good, because we'll be able to show them as well, as a sort of, montage of pictures from tonight's net on Wednesday. Tammy's offered to help me this Wednesday and every Wednesday to do something like this. So any pictures that you email to me, I think you all know my email address probably by now, but it's radio@dcpmicro.com, radio@dcpmicro.com. Drop me an email, whether or not you've talked about your hobby tonight, but if you've got a photo or two of something that you think we'd find interesting and everybody else, then please just drop me a couple of pictures and we'll publish them on Wednesday night. You'll better see them come up and people will be able to ask questions as well when we do this as a stream. Anybody else like to join us now then? This is David G7ERP with the Monday Night Net.
G0MQG.
Okay.
Okay, there was a double there. There was Tony. So if you just stand by a moment, Tony, and I'll get the call sign of the other person.
2E0NLK.
Okay, Nigel, come to you in a moment. And first round to Tony, G0MQG from G7URP in the group.
Yeah, G0MQG returning. Yeah, okay. My ears pricked up when Steve 2E0SZD mentioned the GT40. I was just going to ask one question, Steve. Is it a 1960s one, or is it one of the newer ones? Whichever, I'd be very interested to see it when the club gets back to normality. Just wondered if there's any chance to be able to bring it up the club one night when the club is meeting.
Yeah, hi Sam. Sorry, I don't know how long your message ago was. I only just seen it.
Shall I pick it up, David?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Yeah, your answer to the question, like all cars that are very, very old, a lot of it dates from 66. When we've got it at shows and people ask about it, I often say if we walk around it long enough, I'll show you a washer on it that dates from 3 weeks ago. But it is a fantastic looking machine, fitted with a Ford 302 race engine. That's a 5-litre engine for those that are uninitiated in such things, and it has what's called a full crossover exhaust system, known in the trade as a bunch of snakes, if ever you get to see it.
Okay, no worries. We're probably just about wrapping up, but
when it's ticking over, it sounds like somebody banging you in the chest with a sledgehammer. And absolutely, I promised a few guys, and it's a bit of a shame because I was really looking forward to doing it as soon as we get into the early summer. But if ever we get back to normal before the winter gets really horrible and dark, then I have promised several people, yes, I will bring it to the club one night.
G0MQG, just check I'm not doubling. Okay, good. Yeah, I'd love to see that. So clearly yours is a 1960s one. One of the, dare I say it, genuine ones. If my memory serves me, I think Noel Edmonds had one as well. I don't know if he still got it. Yes, I'd love to see that if you bring it up the club sometime. My escort will be coming back up the club at some time or other as well.
but I can't get out at the moment for two reasons. One is that I'm having to go into self-isolation owing to health conditions. And also, I'm having some building work done, and I've got some bricks, about 3 tons of sand, and various other bits and pieces outside the garage door. So I can't get out if I wanted to. So I have to just walk down the garage every once in a while, run the engine for a little while, keep it lubricated. And that's as far as I go until the building work is finished. But that won't be for a little while because the builders are in self-isolation. I've got all sorts of stuff around mine, cement mixers, wheelbarrows and all the rest of it, but no builders. Back to you, Steve. If you're finished, perhaps you'll pass it back to David.
G0MQG2E0SD. A brief answer. When we get back to normal, me and you must have a chin wag, because I used to own 2 classic commercial vehicles as well, including a big Scamel, so we've got a lot to talk about. David, back round to you.
G7RP returning. Oh, brilliant. No, this is what I hope the net would evolve into. Full discussion and conversation, really, about various things. So that's really good. Right, Nigel, round to you. 2E0NLK, G7URP in the group.
G7URP, 2E0NLK. David, if you... That's up to you. I can do, if you like, I can send some photos, or get some photos done tomorrow night, involving the airsoft, but I can't guarantee being on Wednesday because that's my night on call, unfortunately. As everyone aware, some of us, unfortunately, still have to go out in this, but that's part and parcel of it, so I can't guarantee him being here or not, but I can try and do something for you tomorrow. And the gentleman who's got the Willis Jeep, I have got what is termed as an IRF, real imitation firearm, which is an M4 carbine with red dot scope, but that's for airsoft. And it does look like the genuine article, 100% all the way down it. So, but if you like, David, I can get you some photos over and a write-up of some sort, but it won't be until tomorrow night, if that's all right with you.
G7URP returning. Yep, that'd be brilliant, Nigel. Yeah, just send some pictures over, a few notes on them, just a few words about what they're obviously about, because if you're not around, especially to explain them, then we'll need to do that. But we're hoping to evolve some radio as well. We'll see how brave we get with all the technology and all the different ways of communicating, all the different platforms coming together on Wednesday. But it's all an experiment, but that's what our hobby should be, at the root of our hobby, anyway, the heart of our hobby. Anybody else like to come in on anything to do with hobbies? Otherwise I shall start to wind the net down, although I'm sure it might have a natural life of itself to go on. So this is David G7RP standing by for any other calls.
G0MXN, just a quick one again.
Yes, go ahead, John.
Yeah, without being too geeky, I used to be very heavily involved in flying years ago when I had my own license, and I maintained a flight simulator setup, which was manufactured by Microsoft. Some people might have used it, Microsoft Gold. Unfortunately, they no longer support it. But if anyone is interested at all in a flight simulator, there's a wonderful free program called xplane.com. Get it from x-plane.com. The free version's got about 30,000 different airports on it for landing and takeoffs. And the paid-for version is about £29. It's got a lot more. It's got about, I think, 71 different aircraft on the paid-up version. 24 aircraft on the not paid up version. Can be played with the mouse and the keyboard if a person hasn't got a joystick hidden away somewhere. So for people who years ago used to enjoy Microsoft Gold Flight Simulator, X-Plane is the new one. It's free. You can get it online, download it, and have hours of fun. It is actually authorized, David, by the Civil Aviation Authority in America for up to first solo flying training standard. So it's not a game. It is a proper piece of kit. G0MXN.
G7ERP returning. Well, I certainly remember the Microsoft Flight Simulator as being the standard, wasn't it? And not everybody, but nearly everybody seemed to use that. So I'm sure that'll be useful for people to know that there's x-plane.com have got a free version and also another paid version for anybody interested in flying. Anybody else like to contribute anything to this net all about hobbies? G7ERP, standing by.
3-1-TAF for a question?
Yes, please go ahead then, Dave.
Thank you, David. I was just wondering, who was the gentleman's call sign who said he'd done restored a couple of scamels there? That made my ears prick up, but I was then coming back into the shack there. I had to go to the little boys' room momentarily, and I didn't hear the call
nice one,
sign.
Sam.
But as soon as I heard the scamels being restored, that pricked my ears up. My last lorry I say I'd done was a scamel, and that was a joint venture between Wins Heavy Haulage and Scamel in Watford. And they got together and built these big scamels called Amazon's heavy haulage vehicles. But say the one I've got now was a heavy commercial breakdown truck. But I'm going to convert it back into a heavy haulage truck. So that's what I was doing. But I was just wondered who it was and what scamel they had, David, from 2E1TAF.
G7ERP returning. Well, I've written down classic cars and things like that to several people. So maybe whoever that is who is doing up a couple of scamels, you'd like to come in now. This is G7ERP.
2E0S. Oh, forgetting my own call sign now, Dave. It must be getting late. 2E0SZD. It was actually me. We don't own it any longer, but for your information, Dave, it was a Scamel 20LA chassis with a Gardner 6LW in it, and it was originally a Chalmex tanker puller, and then it was rebuilt by a travelling fairground family, well known in fairground circles, known as Jennings of Devices in Wiltshire, and it had a generator set on the back of it, and every nut and bolt restoration when I owned it, and we sold it before we moved up to Norfolk. When we lived in Oxfordshire, we had a very large premises, and I had a whole kind of flotilla of vintage vehicles, and we decided to have a massive downsize in life. And my brother jokes to this day that I left the planet and moved to Norfolk, and part of that decision-making process, we sold the Scamel at an auction, and it made a very good price. Back round to you, David.
Is that this David or URP David? Sorry, from 2E1TAF.
Yes, like Steve's. There's lots of Steve's in the club. There's obviously lots of David. I was actually hanging it back to our net controller, so if you don't mind, David, I'll do that. David, G7URP to pick it up.
G7URP returning. Yeah, I was just waiting for the repeater tones as well, so sorry about that. Okay, Dave, 2E1TAF, so there we are. That was Steve, 2E0SZD, who was doing up the Scamels, and he's promised to bring his GT40 as well to the club some night. So if he allows us, maybe we'll be able to even publicise that if anybody'd like to see it. Anybody else like to come in on this net all about hobbies? G7URP standing by.
Dewey's here, okay?
Yes, go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, who's the gentleman who's got the Scamel with the recovery equipment on the back?
Would you like to go ahead, whoever that is, please?
Yeah, that'd be me, 2E1TAF. For the fool I am, I bought another one. Over.
Ah, I thought you'd got one and you was going to put it back as a heavy haulage and take all the recovery gear off it.
Yes, that's correct. I've got one crane on the front which I'll be shifting out soon. The rear gear, which you'd know is TFL, so I'll probably keep that on it. And once I get rid of the crane off the front, I've got a sleeper pod off Kenworth W900 to go on it to fill in the space, Nigel. 2E1TAF.
Yes, because as everyone virtually know on there, that is my job, and I might have been, if you was getting rid of the whole lot, I might have been able to gave you a helping hand in finding a new home for the recovery equipment. Okay, never mind. If it's not going, then don't worry.
Okay, well, that's good. Anybody else like to come in on this? Otherwise, I will wind the net down now. We've had a good hour and a half at this, I think. But as I said, it's not over yet, because I hope that we'll be able to continue with some pictures and videos and other things as well, maybe on Wednesday as well. So this is David G7RP saying, for a final time, anybody else would like to come in on the net this evening or volunteer themselves for another net? We've already got Andrew 2E0LTA is running the Monday night net next Monday. But we're looking for other people to run it in the future. You don't have to say now. Of course, you can drop me an email. But anyway, anybody else for tonight on the net? G7RP standing by. Oh, nothing heard? Okay, well, thank you ever so much. I hope that we've covered quite a lot of different subjects here tonight. I'm sure there's a lot of hobbies covered. Certainly made a few contacts between people who they didn't know that was their hobbies, and who knows, some friendships as well. That's what it's all about. And I hope this Monday Night Net has helped to do that. As I said a minute ago, Andrew 2E0LTA will be here this time, or 7:30 next Monday night. But this Wednesday, we'll be doing a sort of a bit like if you saw last week's NARC Live, we'll be doing something a bit like that, but trying to take in pictures and videos and maybe phone calls and all sorts of different things this Wednesday night to try and make it an interesting club night. It will start at 7:30. It's all a bit of an experiment, and I'll put a newsletter out on the Wednesday just confirming in the places that you'll be able to see where it's happening, and hopefully it'll be at least 2 places online, and some of it may be on the radio as well. But we're going to work a few things out first. Thank you ever so much to everybody who's joined us tonight, and finally I'll give a roll call to everybody who was on the net and those just listening in as well. So thanks again. We'll speak to you all again and see you all again soon. Those of you who can help on Wednesday night, please stay around for after the net if you can. Otherwise, drop me an email and we'll be in touch over the next 24 hours to sort out Wednesday. So thanks to M0NKR, G800, M7JPC, 2E0SZD, M0BLH, M0TVG, G3PDH, G0CBO, G3EVA, M0ZAH, G0HZP, 2E0NLK, G0DCA, G4DYC, M0UKS, M6VWN, M6KYF, G0MQG, G8VPE, 2E1TAF, G0MXN, and mustn't forget M0TC, and me, G7URP. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Hope you've had an enjoyable net, and it will all happen again next Monday night. So this is David G7URP saying good night from the net, and just ask those of you who are interested in helping on Wednesday, if you'd like to talk on the radio now, you'd be more than welcome. Otherwise, communicate over.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, good.
David G7URP signing for now.
David, just quickly, if I am about on Wednesday night, how do I get the link on the computer? Because I don't know how you do anything about that. So if you can just let us know how I can get the link, just in case I am.
Right, I'll just mute that out. Thanks ever so much for joining, everybody. And we will see you again another time.